During 2023, the FTC reported in excess of $10 billion was stolen nationwide due to scams. Nearly 2.6 million consumers experienced financial devastation, emotional and physical pain, and often shame that comes with being a victim of a scammer. Welcome back to the Grands Club podcast, the show that features stories, life lessons, and legacies of the grand generation so others may learn from their experiences. I'm your host, Kathy Bernard, and today we're diving into the topic that's becoming more and more crucial: scams. Whether it's a phone call from someone claiming to be the IRS, an online shopping deal that sounds just too good to be true, or even a new friend asking for help in an online romance. Scams are becoming increasingly sophisticated, and they're hitting older adults, yes, us grands, especially hard. That's why I'm very excited to welcome Amy Nofziger, the Director of Fraud Victim Support at AARP. Amy has spent years working to help people recognize and avoid the numerous scams that are out there. She's here to share her knowledge on what's happening in the world of fraud, and most importantly, how we can protect ourselves and our loved ones from falling victim to deceptive schemes. Welcome, Amy. Let's grab a cup
Hi.
of coffee and or a
Yeah.
cup of tea and let's talk about these evil scammers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and, sharing my 23 years of working in this field on how people can, better protect themselves, maybe pick up one new thing to do today to protect themselves or their family. But ultimately, let them know that, if they do fall victim to one of these scams, there's help out there.
Which is so important because it's really frightening. As I was doing all this research, I'm like, oh, I've seen that. I've seen this. I've heard this. So let's just start at the beginning. What qualifies something as a scam?
Um, I'm sure Webster's has a great definition, but for me, it's someone stealing your money when they're using some sort of trickery or pretending to be someone that they're not. Whether you can go into the undue influence, you can go to the emotional, amygdala hijacking, but it's basically someone stealing your money or personal information based on a story that's just not true.
Oh gosh. And it seems it seems that scams are on the rise, even though I know we're becoming much more aware and there are authorities that are going after scammers, but they just seem to be increasing. I mean, how many people are scammed each year? Do we
So just yeah, a couple of things on that. I do think that, crime and scams are increasing, but I also think reporting is increasing. And that is something that I've drastically seen a rise of since I started working in this field in 2001 is it's being reported more. So people might think that there's more scams, when in fact it might be the same amount of scams, but just more people are reporting it. Um, but they definitely increased, and I think a lot of it is due to this, magical device that we carry with us 24/7, right? We call it a phone, but it's really a mini computer that the criminals can then have access to us 24/7. Where, when I first started, most of the scams came in over the landline, through the mail, or at the door. And now anywhere you are online, so is a criminal. And, when you're waiting for your doctor's appointment, you're on your device. When you're at a traffic light, you're on your device. And again, it just gives more opportunities for the criminals to hit us. Numbers wise, right now, the FTC said in 2023 they got about 2.9 million reports, and what you said earlier with the $10 billion
Yeah.
lost. I actually think it's more than that, because even though we have seen an increase in reporting, we still know that this crime is hugely underreported because people are ashamed and embarrassed about it.
Right, right. Well, you all have produced some really super podcasts called The Perfect Scam. And I've just been, it's like, oh, it's my favorite thing to listen to now. So I'm on my elliptical or whatever, but they're really well done. And so many stories. I mean, they really hit your heart. Um, with very intelligent people that have been scammed. There was one man, I believe he even worked in the cybersecurity world, who was basically terrorized by a cell phone scammer and lost $200,000. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know the exact story, but unfortunately, we hear these stories every single day. So whether it's his story or somebody else's story, we hear them. So on the Fraud Watch Network helpline, which AARP has a part of their fraud prevention and victim support, we get about 400 to 500 phone calls every single day from people who are either experiencing fraud or have questions about fraud. So that story, although it's unique to him, is again not unique to us who are working with victims. And I think one of the things that's really hard for people to understand when it comes to fraud education, scams, is that they never think it's going to happen to them. They think, well, it's going to happen to that person down the street who's, gullible, uneducated. I went to Harvard, I went to Cornell. It's not going to happen to me. I'm, quote, smart. When really it's your emotional like cross, so to speak, on when these scammers hit you. You might have just gotten out of the doctor's office and got mad news. You might be exhausted. You might be under stress. The dog might be barking. 2 seconds before or 2 seconds after, you might not have listened to what the scammer was saying, but it's that moment in time when your emotions were not kind of protected, that the scammer was able to come in with you. And I think that's something for people to know. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has nothing to do with your income or where you went to school or what you did for a job. All of us have a target on our back and all of us are vulnerable. And that's why just learning the red flags and also understanding your own emotional capacity is really important to prevent being a victim of a scam.
So we're all prey. We're all just prey for these awful individuals. What are
Yeah,
some
but don't. Oh, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I also don't want people to have it as a fear. I want it to almost motivate them and empower them to take action,
good point?
right? Yeah, yeah, because we're not just waiting for the criminals to come and get us. But if you have $1 in your bank account, there is a criminal looking to steal that dollar. So then be proactive, be empowered, and take steps to protect yourself and your family from when they do try to hit you.
Okay, I really want to circle back to what those steps are. Um, what are some of the most prevalent scams today?
So it's kind of interesting because everyone wants to talk about the new scam, like with AI and deep fakes and everything like that. That's certainly on our radar, and that certainly can be an issue. But a lot of the scams that are targeting people are the ones that I started with 23 years ago. We still have a lot of sweepstakes and lottery scams where someone will call up and pretend to be whether Publishers Clearinghouse or a lottery, saying that you won, and you just have to pay the taxes. You have to prepay the taxes for this prize. A lot of imposter scams, um, government imposter scams, pretending to be the FBI or the IRS, saying that you're in trouble or you didn't pay your taxes and they need money. Also, company imposter scams. I mean, if you're a successful brand, there is a scammer out there pretending to be you and reaching out to consumers, whether they're pretending to be PayPal, Amazon, Microsoft. Romance scams always are in our top 5 complaints on the helpline, unfortunately. And the thing with romance scams is, people will say, well, I'm not going to be a victim of a romance scam because I'm married or I'm not looking for love. But we're finding that these criminals are, very adept at changing their script. And they're meeting you on Facebook fan club pages. They're meeting you on Words with Friends. So it might just start out as a friendship that ultimately leads to, some flirtation and flattery. And then, of course, their need for help. With that, we have seen over the last couple of years a little bit of a shift with some of the romance scams where we're turning them into some crypto investment scams. So I'm sure we've all gotten the email, or I'm sorry, the text message that says, hey, what time's dinner? Or are you playing golf tomorrow? And you're thinking, I don't know this person. And you write back and say, sorry, I have the wrong number. Conversation ensues, maybe a little flattery, a little friendship. That is the start of a crypto investment scam. And so we're kind of seeing those two merge together.
I hit a text yesterday that said, "Hey, I want to buy your house, moving to the area." I said, "Great, 10 million cash, you can have it."
Perfect refusal script. That's how you say no to these scammers.
Just, and no, I'm not, it's gonna
Yep.
be the
They're
real
not going to
deal.
text you back.
Right, right. So where are these scammers coming from? I mean, are they all over the world? Are they in our own country? Hate to think of that,
Everywhere.
but where are they coming?
Yeah, I mean, really everywhere. And you're just like, crime is everywhere. This is just kind of an emerging crime for a lot of these criminals. I'm reading some reports that some of the, former kind of organized crime rings that maybe would peddle in, drugs are now moving to some of these scams because they're finding it's less, harmful for their workers and more productive in earning cash. So everybody is committing, not everybody, but where
Yeah.
there's money, there is crime. And when criminals see an opportunity, they will take it up. I really try to focus more on the kind of steps before we get to the end because people are like, well, are we arresting these people? Yes, absolutely. There has been a lot of shutting down some of these huge call centers in these foreign countries. The FBI is doing a great job of bringing these people to justice, even, extraditing them to the US and holding them accountable. But I really would like to not get that to that point, right? I really like to stop it with the prevention and the education, stop it with some of the technology out there of, not even letting these calls get to our phone. Maybe we call them the just-in-time moments. Like, let's say someone is, a potential victim is standing at a crypto ATM machine and someone interacts and says, hey, I think you're being a victim of a scam right now, right? I'd like the money to never leave. So we kind of don't even have to worry about where these criminals are.
Right. Well, that's a wonderful point. So to sort of expand on that, what are some great steps that we can take to be aware, to avoid, to notify, all the above, so that we are not scammed?
I really like to start out with everyone kind of saying to themselves, I have a target on my back and I need to pay attention to what's out there. Here's why I think that is a perfectly good first step is because again, we have to let people understand that we're all vulnerable and it's just that one moment in time. But when we don't think we are, or when we don't think this applies to us, we're not paying attention. And it's a bad example, but one I use of why I don't read articles about healthy pregnancy. Because I will never be pregnant again in my life, right? Same thing. People are like, I'm not reading this article on 10 ways to keep myself safe from fraud because I'll never be a victim because I'm smart, right? So, really just breaking kind of down that myth of who these crimes happen to because it happens to all of us. Then, go straight into then how to protect yourself. I think there's a lot of good things out there. Number one, put a freeze on your credit report. It is free and it doesn't prevent you from using the credit you have. It prevents you and anybody else, like a criminal, from opening up credit in your name, any new credit. If you then need to, let's go buy a car, buy a boat, whatever, you can thaw your credit for how many days you want to while they check your credit and then freeze it right back up. But that is a great way from preventing people, criminals, from opening up credit cards, lines of credit, mortgages, whatever in your name. uh, Phone calls. So if you are still using a landline, there's great products out there. You can talk to your phone company, but there's products like Nomo Robo that will prevent any robocalls from coming into your house. If you use a smartphone, there's built-in technology into your device. You go into your phone, you go into your settings, and it will say send any unknown number to voicemail. That means anybody that calls you that is not in your contacts list will go directly to voicemail. And I think this is a
Okay.
great step for people to do. Next time you're all with your friends, say, hey, let's all get our phones out. Let's put our contacts in, and then let's all do this together. And it's a kind of a great way to feel empowered. If it's some people always say, well, what if it's my doctor if it's important? Well, one, they're probably in your contacts anyways. But
Right.
two, if it's important, they'll leave you a voicemail. They'll leave you a voicemail. Then
Hmm.
there's so many other ways people can go, on AARP.org/fraud watch network and look at all of the other things. But the one other thing I just want to add, and it seems so simple, is we need to go to our purses and our wallets and take everything out, lay it on the table, and think about what we really need to have in there. You would not believe how many phone calls every single day we get from people whose wallets or purses are stolen and they've had their social security number. I've had birth certificates, divorce papers, military IDs. I've had everything. And I'm thinking that is just a treasure trove. Treasure trove, that's a tongue twister, for
Yes.
criminals. So those are my top kind of 3 or 4 right now.
Oh, I have to tell you a story. I was in Paris. Uh, we were pre-gaming, right? The Olympics, I like to say. And it ended up being a pouring rainy day. And we hopped on the metro, which we did not want to take at all. But it was right there. And we decided we'll just take it. Not 5 minutes on the metro, my husband's wallet was stolen and it was buried down. It was not in his bag. It was all buried down. And we only brought two credit cards. But he did have his license, etc. It really is a big pain in the neck. But by the time we got off at the next stop, because that person jumped out, they had already hit the bank. And of course, the bank covered everything. It was all ends up being a very good
Mhm.
story. And the bank immediately, gave us
Mhm.
new cards. But you are so right. If we had had other information in there, it really would have been bad. It was bad enough, you know,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it really would have been awful.
absolutely.
So it does happen to all of us in all different ways. So some of these scams, I wonder, how do they hone in on specific people? Is it just that it's a random call, a random email that they have, and then folks get kind of sucked into it and then they dive deeper? Or are they actually doing research on specific individuals?
I would say it's all of the above, honestly. So we do know that there's I don't know why people like to come up with these creative, clever names, but spear phishing, right? So that's kind of a phishing scam, but they say it's called spear phishing because they're really targeting you as the person. So they might utilize, your social media if it's not locked down tightly, and they might see that you like dogs. And so I might get an email that says, "Hey, Amy, this is, XYZ. We really need your help in fundraising for these dogs right now. We know this is something passionate, that you have, so something like that. They might tailor it and put it towards you. Some of the people are talking about with the AI and the voice cloning. We're like they talk about with the grandparent scam. We're not really hearing or seeing that, but what we have heard is happening is, they might utilize some artificial intelligence to get somebody's voice. That maybe is a large CEO of a company, right? That they know has a significant net worth and that has access to money. So they might do that. But a lot of them is just random. But let's be clear, since who your audience is, they are coming to older adults more often because you guys hold the majority of wealth in the United States. And it's just why bank robbers rob banks. They go where the money is. So
Right.
they're definitely going to target the older generation more than, let's say, my college kid. But trust me, they'll still steal his $5, but they would rather steal your $50,000.
Exactly. Well, and wasn't it a few years ago that one of the big scams, someone would contact someone and say, "Hey, I lost my wallet and I'm in Mexico and I need all this. Can you wire me funds?" Or your grandchild, is stuck
Mhm.
and you can't even make a phone call. Asked me to call you and need some money. Is that one gone away? I hope they're on to something
No,
new.
no, no. We call those our legacies. The legacies
Oh,
stay around because they're successful. And, with those two in particular, they really hone in on, we talked about this earlier, but the emotional, right? So your grandchild is in prison and you are the only one can help them, right? Like all cognitive thinking goes out the window. And the only thing you're thinking with is your emotions, thinking, I will do whatever it takes to get my grandson, out of trouble. Or, using your Paris example, it's like, if I was in your address book and your email got hacked and they found out you were in Paris. It's like, hey, Amy, we're in Paris. I lost my wallet. Can send me a gift card or can you wire me money? Right? It's like, oh my gosh, Kathy's in trouble and she's asking me for help. Like, I'm so flattered. Of course I'll help you. Right? And I know you like to travel, so it all kind of makes sense. But no, those haven't gone away, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh. Well, tell us a bit about AARP's Fraud Watch Network. And I'm going to go on their website and I'm going to really try to push it out with my friends and family. But if we are scammed, or we believe we're scammed, who do we contact? Do we contact through the network? Do we call the local police? I mean, what do we do?
Of course, I would love for you to call us on the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline if you don't know where to go. But I don't honestly care where you go as long as you go somewhere. So if you're more comfortable reaching out to your local law enforcement, call them. If you're more comfortable reaching out to the FTC or the FBI, call them. But certainly, if you don't know where to go, you can call us on the helpline. It's a free resource for anyone of any age, and you do not have to be an AARP member. You can call us if you got a suspicious phone call and you just want to report it. It's a scam, but you just want to let AARP know. You can call us if maybe you got an email or a text message and you're just not sure about it and you want to kind of verify, with a wise friend, that's us. Or unfortunately, if you have been a victim of a scam and you've lost personal information or money, you will be assigned one of our 150 fraud specialists that we have across the country who will work one-on-one with you and provide you guidance and resources on what to do next. But most importantly, what they'll do is they'll give you that empathetic ear that is sometimes missing with this crime. And they'll really help you understand that you're not alone and really empower you to move forward on this fraud journey. So I'm sure you'll put it, on the website, but I'll give the number right now because we want to give it out. It's
Please.
877 903 3360.
I'm taking prolific notes as we're speaking. One scam is what I'm going to call it, that it's just constantly goes in our community. And I know it goes around because we have multiple friends who receive the same phone calls, and it's your cell rings and it's, hi, this is Officer so and so. Everything's okay. We're just calling because we're doing a fundraiser for the boys down at the station, that kind of thing. It's so irritating. And they get meaner and meaner as sort of like, nope, sorry, I don't do this. Nope, whatever. Um, that's a scam, right? I'm
Yeah, so
assuming.
it's a paid solicitor. And so sometimes, fire departments and police departments, they don't have the capacity to fundraise for whatever they need to do. And so they will, work with some of these paid solicitors. The problem is the paid solicitors are most of the time getting 90% of your donation,
Oh,
and the actual, police department is getting, the 10%. So we recommend people to not give that way. And honestly, don't give over the phone unless you absolutely know who you're talking to. Do your research. And if you want to give to your local fire station or to the, police benevolent fund, go directly down there and give them the payment or go to their website so they get 100% of your hard-earned money. And then they can have that money to do what they want, not pay some solicitor to harass you on the phone.
exactly. That's what I tell them. I'm like, we know our sheriff. We're going to go down and speak directly to him.
Exactly.
Well, finally, Amy, there's so much we could talk about, and I just have to have you back so we can kind of do some follow-ups and hopefully get some, listener feedback and stories, etc. But before we wrap up, do you have any final advice for all of us out here?
Just know it's happening. But just like you put a lock on your door, maybe you have a ring camera, you have a dog, you have an alarm, you check your windows before you go to bed at night. Do the same with your financial safety and security, right? Don't assume that someone is doing it for you. Make sure that you have things on lockdown so that moment when the scammer does target you or tries to steal your money, you have the protection methods in place. Doesn't mean it's, they're not going to get in, just like someone could, break your window eventually. But just empower yourself and say, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to this stuff because it can and it might happen to me.
Exactly. And I also learned from your podcast that we should lock our SIM cards on our phone.
Yeah, that's definitely something. There's about 10 other things I'd rather you do first. But if you've
Okay.
done those other 10 things, then go ahead and do that. But I try not to give people too much
Right.
at once because I feel like it's easier to chunk it out. So if you could get a freeze on your credit today, if you could set up some protections on your phone and maybe even your social media, I'd certainly be happy with that. And then the next time I'm back, we can go a little step further.
Perfect. We're going to have a report card.
Yes.
Well, Amy Nofziger, AARP's expert on scams and fraud prevention, thank you for all that you're doing to protect all of us from scammers. This is such an important topic, and I'd love for you to come back again and keep us grands on our toes.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, Amy.